Right, it's fine. It's fine. The sound is there. Stop saying sound. Apologies for that. I wasn't expecting to do it this early. I've wiped away all the earlier comments. So yes, sorry. We've had a general election announcement, in case you hadn't noticed. And the chat's going mad telling me until it catches up, there's no sound. There is no sound. So the reason why he's called it, really simply, while I just ignore the chat for a moment, is, of course, he couldn't let people see his Rwanda plan in action, because the Rwanda plan, first of all, we don't know that any planes will ever take off with the Rwanda plan, and we literally will not find out now, because Rishi Sunak reckons that his flights will be in the air from sort of late June to mid-July. We'll never find out. Because even if a flight takes off late June, that's before the election, we can't hear about it. Per the rules. Can't be, the civil service isn't allowed to do major things. You're not allowed to make major announcements or anything like that could influence an election. So PERDA will prevent any Rwanda flight taking off, as far as I can tell. I actually don't know how a flight could go, or if it did go off, how it could be announced. So this is all about stopping people realising that his Rwanda plan is a complete dead duck. And at the same time, you may say, well, it's all right saying that, Phil. Why weren't you saying, because I said earlier this week, or was it at the end? No, it's the end of last week, sorry. There were people saying, we're getting a buzz that it's going to be July the 4th. But we also had people saying, no, we think it's November the 14th. And I said, I don't believe either of them. Or rather, I don't know when it is, because there's no good time. And you think, well, if this Rwanda plan dying on its arse was going to completely snooker the Tories, why wasn't I so sure it would be a summer election? Because it doesn't make sense. No time makes sense. Think about it this way. Why didn't Rishi Sunak call the election for May the 2nd? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why didn't he call the election for May the 2nd? Don't know. There's only one advantage I can think. If he'd have called the election for May the 2nd, technically we would still have been in recession. Now, we know we left recession after Q1, but the news didn't come out until earlier this month. So there was absolutely zero way of Rishi Sunak going to the election saying, yeah, we are out of recession. But look at what's happened since, right? Look at what's happened since. Inflation has dropped a bit with the news today, but it wasn't as low as it was supposed to be. They were expecting it to go below the 2% mark. It's 2.3%. So the inflation figures are still worse than expected. We've just had higher unemployment figures out. The polling is no better than it was at the start of this month. The local election results were worse than expected. And they've just announced the police should stop arresting people because we haven't got room in our prisons. Right, I've got a couple of super chats. I've had to put super chats on today. Thank you very much. Scott Walter, 9.99. It says, does this also mean the anti-cyclist legislation IDS tried to ram through Parliament is also dead? So that's a very good question. Quite a lot of legislation will now be dead, yes. There are still some bills. Parliament's not being dissolved straight away. So priority bills will still get time. There's a finance bill still to go through. There's bound to be the odd little thing that's already well advanced that will go through. But yeah, quite a lot of the low priority legislation, shall we say, will be dead. Anything that the Tories, by the way, have announced in the last couple of weeks for which legislation's needed, that's dead. Jeremy Hunt was hinting that he might be able to talk about tax cuts in the autumn. We sort of knew that wasn't going to happen. And why did we know that? Because when they announced the budget, they also, in the small print, it said there wouldn't be another spending review until the election. So we sort of knew they weren't really going to have the election in late autumn anyway. So yeah, it's, absolutely. Any non-priority legislation is now dead because there's now going to be limited time. Parliament's going to be dissolved very shortly. It's got a matter of days. So it's only top priority legislation that will go through now. Which, yes, means the Ian Duncan Smith nonsense, dead and buried. It probably was anyway, let's be honest. Dilshah, £5 super chat, thank you. Says, have a pint on Mayfield, bring on Independence Day, thank you. Actually, where I come from, we could probably get 2 pints for that. And Master Templar, £5, thank you. It says, finally, the first Labour government will be coming in my adult life. Do you know what as well? It means I will be getting married during a Labour government. Isn't that nice? I chose the end of August specifically because there was no way Rishi Sunak could either call the election or have the election in that week, because end of August, right? Bank holiday week, people on holiday. You know, up there. So, but also, you know, my fiance had decided that the colour, apparently you have to have a colour for weddings, and this is new to me, but the colour for the wedding is red. So that'll be quite good. And Nicholas Fleece, 5 Swiss francs, thank you very much. Lots of kissy faces, thank you. And Bob McFiggin, £5 super chat, thank you. Happy Independence Day, everyone. Yes, I mean, we don't get to find out until July the 5th, sorry. So the election is on July the 4th. It's not really an Independence Day you're supposed to celebrate in Britain, but never mind. But it'll be, so we find out on July the 5th, of course. So basically what I'm saying is in 44 days' time, we have a Labour government. That's it. They're gone. They're gone. In fact, this picture's more appropriate now. Bye-bye. But it was quite funny watching him getting pissed wet through, and with Steve Bray blasting "Things Can Only Get Better" on it. Some wags just suggested it should now be called "Things Can Only Get Wetter," which is very good. But yeah, it's if you watch this, obviously some of you have watched the speech. It was Rishi Sunak's going to be fuming. It was completely ruined. It was absolute rubbish what he was saying anyway, never mind. But it was completely ruined by the weather. They actually delayed the announcement because it was raining, but they obviously realised it was just going to carry on. They actually should have done it on time. It wasn't raining as hard if you'd have done it on time. Anyway, sorry, more super chats. William Baker, £5, thank you very much. And Jeffrey Joshua Rowling, $4.99, merci. And Deck Morgan, £2. It says it was a wet lettuce all through that speech. It was atrocious, the speech. Gary Arnold, £10, says thank you for all the videos. As soon as you are more than welcome. And Ray Harvey, £5, hooray! It is. I mean, you know, in terms of the timing, it's like weird because you'd think, you know, you'd say to yourself, Labour will ordinarily the government gets to set the date, so they do it when it's in the favour of the government. Labour are loving; they wanted it as soon as possible. Think about this now. It means that the budget next spring can be a full proper budget. It takes a long time to work on a budget. With that, you can't start until you can work with the Treasury. So, you know, it means that Labour will now get not quite a full year, but the best part, you know, it'll be a decent amount of time. So the budget in 2025 should be a decent, you know, it should be a Labour budget, basically. James Harrison, 999 super chat, thank you very much. And Andrew Greenland, €10. Looking forward to you covering the election film Over the Moon today. Yes, I'm going to be very busy, I think. There's crap loads of emails coming in from everywhere. All, you know, all sundry. Gary Wayne, £5, thank you very much. And, oh, great, there's loads and loads. I should have turned these off. Oh, no, I've gone past them all now. Sang, congrats on the marriage, thank you. I was just wondering, lots of Twitter reports saying Rishi calling the election now is him giving up. Is that my opinion? I mean, it is by definition because they're going to lose. So, of course, it's them giving up. But remember, the Rwanda plan cannot work. We don't even know they can get a flight in the air. We don't even know that. Just because he's passed this legislation, it hasn't been tested in the courts. If we assume it would have allowed some asylum seekers to be sent to Rwanda against their will, okay, technically that's Rwanda. Would that stop the boats? No. And the reason why some on the far right are furious at this election timing is they wanted people to see the Rwanda plan fail so they could say it wasn't good enough because they'd said from the start, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work. They wanted that. Now they can't get to say that because what will happen is on July the 5th, Labour will instantly, they don't have to announce it, they've already announced it. But if there are any flights or if any flights have taken off, there won't be any more. They'll stop them immediately. They've already said they'll stop them. So Rishi Sunak will get to say, oh no, the Rwanda plan would absolutely have worked and Labour stopped it. Whereas the far right wanted Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan to fail, which of course it was going to. Jonas, 65 Swedish kroner, I think that is. Will people remember these 14 years and not vote for them in 5 years if Labour can't fix everything in the first parliament? No. People have very short memories. What will happen is they'll not think of it as the Conservative Party. They'll think of it as like Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, people like that. So in 5 years' time, when it's different leaders, they'll think, oh no, these ones are better. So there will be people who are not going to vote Conservative at this election who will vote Conservative at the next election, which is why they need crushing good and proper. So remember, stop the Tories, vote. I'm going to put this one back up. I like this one better. David Downey, £5. Thank you. Have a Vimto on me. Thank you very much. We are running low on Vimto as it happens. Although I am on the Apple Tango tonight. Paul Ewan, £2. Thank you. Love seeing what sad, wet Tories. And Tim Beaton, £5. Thank you very much. Wayne, £5. The best feel good factor video so far. Well, wait until the day of the election. Although I have said, I don't know, I will be happy. But at the same time apprehensive because, you know, I don't just want the cycle to start again. I mean, that's huge for me. I can't bear the thought of living to see the Tories come back to majority government. Now, if the Conservatives come back to power in proportion to their share of the vote, okay, that's democracy. What's not democracy is getting a minority of the vote and having 100% of the power. And that is what Labour are going to have. That is what Labour are going to have. But, you know, I would also say it's in the long-term interests of Labour to make sure that they... Because whatever they can achieve is trashed as soon as the Tories come back in. See, what the Tories want to achieve is destruction. You can destroy something really easily. And then you let the opposition in for a few years. They build it back up. You destroy it again. It's easy. They're just people who like destroying things. Craig, they're short on candidates, incomplete manifesto, MPs cancelling holidays, guessing he was pushed into it by letters. Not necessarily. I mean, I think if anything pushed him into it, it is the fact that the Rwanda plan will be seen to fail. If the Rwanda plan is seen as a failure, he's lost everything. He's lost everything. He hasn't got anything. Oh, Adam Key, very good. £4.07 to match the election date. We've got this, yeah. This, you have to do it American, yes. No, actually, no, that's the UK version. What I'm talking about, I'm going backwards. 4th of July, yes, very good. And Johnny Copperhead, £5. Thank you very much. Just got my first text from Party HQ chasing donations. I've had multiple emails. I daren't look at them just yet on all of my email accounts. DP, £10. Thank you for all the hope you've given. I don't like to trade in hope. We don't want hope. We want plans. There's too many people like that, and there's far too many super chats here. This is madness. Ashley Ramsbottom, £10. Thank you. Jack Haberdasher, thank you. Go to the champagne fund. Unfortunately, it won't. I don't like champagne. I'm a Vimto socialist, you see. JD, £20. Thank you. A little drink if you and your significant other. Yes, it won't be champagne though, but we will find something. Port. We both like port. Even the asylum seekers can now look forward to a better future as their claims will now get processed under Labour. Jasmos. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, asylum is always an awkward one. I'm not going to pretend that it's all going to be brilliant, but at least it's going to be legal. And Adam K, £10. Thank you. Thanks for all the content, Phil. Can't wait to see your big grin when Labour get elected. Hope to see you as an MP, PM someday too. Yeah, I don't think so. David Faulkner, 38 Hong Kong dollars. Tories certain to lose, so rejoice early. Yeah, but this is the thing now. They are certain to lose. Absolutely certain to lose. The trick is, can we make them lose really badly, like into third place? Can we stop them even being the official opposition? Ironically, having the election now means that it's harder to do that. Because things would have... The reason why Rishi Sunak's called this election now, things would have been worse after summer. Tell you another thing it means. It means Rishi Sunak is going to have to sort of... he's already clearly abandoned the India trade deal because that can't happen now. So that's gone. How many seats may Labour win? Thoughts. The problem with first past the post is small differences can make a hell of a lot of difference. It's the problem with first past the post. You know, you can win. So put it this way, Labour are polling about 43% at the moment. The Conservatives got just over 43% of the vote in 2019, and they won 365 seats. Labour are polling on round about the same, maybe slightly less, really. And they could win over 400 seats. It's completely mental. I mean, you know, actually, I'm going to look up the exact figures because just to show you the difference it makes, the 2005 general election results were something else. So Labour got 35.2% of the vote. The Conservatives got 32.4% of the vote. So Labour only got just over a third of the vote. The Tories got just under a third of the vote. There was not a lot of difference. Labour got fewer than 1 million extra votes compared to the Tories. Yeah, Labour got 355 seats. The Tories got 198. It's the difference. It's where those votes are. And although we can sort of see from the details that the votes are large. Oh, Starmer speak at the moment. Yeah, well done. I'll look at that later. Where was I now? You know, it's where those votes are. Now, Labour have concentrated those votes very well, as far as we can tell from polling. But do remember, polling has extra difficulties this year. First of all, boundary changes. That automatically creates a huge level of uncertainty. There's always uncertainties, right? This is an extra one. Secondly, voter ID. Polling can only work on people's intentions. A decent pollster can try and take account of people who say they will vote a particular way, but they probably won't vote at all. They can do that unless voter behaviour massively changes for an election. They can take account of that. What they can't take account of is how many people will genuinely want to vote, try to vote, and then can't vote because they didn't get their voter ID sorted out. Can't take account of that. I'll tell you another thing it can't take account of. Because the rules have changed for overseas voters this year, so if you live, even if you've lived abroad for like 10 years or more, you can now vote if you're registered. If there's a lot of people do that, I suspect there won't be a massive number, but if there are, that affects it. Pollsters can't take account of that either. So, you know, there are extra difficulties, but such is the margin that the result won't be in doubt, but the specific number of seats, little things can change it a lot. Like if we have really good tactical voting campaigns in key constituencies, that will make the difference. Rishi Sunak probably won't lose his seat. It's a safe seat. But if there's a really good tactical voting campaign in his constituency, like Richmond in North Yorkshire, he could lose his seat. He's not so far ahead. He's not so safe that he can't possibly lose his seat. He can, but it will just take something a bit special. Milan Contra there. So, you've done the US one. Thank you. US dollars 7.04 to do the American way. Congrats from America. Bring as many forms as ID as you can find. Well, no, just look at the list. Look at the list. There aren't that many, really, unless you're elderly. Just make sure you've got the right one, that it's in date. And if you haven't got it, get it. Get it now. And get people registered. If you know, particularly first-time voters, young people, get them registered. If they're 17, but they're going to be 18 by the July the 4th, get them registered. You can register now. Get them registered. Get their voter ID sorted. If they're not going to be able to do it, because we have elections on Thursdays, it's rubbish. If they're going to be really busy, although ironically, July the 4th for university students works out quite well, doesn't it? It means they're more likely to be at home, which means that could work out. That could work out because if they register at home instead of their university digs, a lot of universities in cities where Labour tend to win handsomely, for a lot of students, I mean, check, but for a lot of students, you can vote wherever you like. You can't vote in both places, but you can vote in whichever one you like. for a lot of students, you know, you might find that your tactical vote or your vote in general is better used your home address rather than your university address. But yes. Ed Cav, £5, thank you. About time the election was called. It is well past time. Have a cheeky Vim to on me too. It is. I mean, it's bittersweet, isn't it? Because part of me thinks if they had held on till autumn, things would have been worse. I was utterly convinced. I mean, you'll know, people have watched my videos. It would have been way worse for them. Nothing was getting better at all. Absolutely insane that they would have delayed this long. He should have called the election last May. He should have, when he became Prime Minister, it was fairly obvious it was obvious he wasn't intending, but he couldn't, there's only so much he could do anyway. He'd have been better off saying, we need to clear up this mess. The Parliament's in a bit of a state. It's all gone stale. And he should have announced he should have said, when he became Prime Minister, I'm going to put our, put our ducks in order, or whatever you want to call it, put the ducks in a line. And then I'm going to call an election next year. He should have just said that. And then he should have called the election for May. They'd have lost, but they'd have done way better. They wouldn't have necessarily lost that badly either. We might now be like a year into a Labour government on a reasonable but not brilliant majority. And the Tories could be rebuilding. But no, they didn't want to. They thought, no, their greed took over. Because it would have been different if he had intended to actually do something that would appeal to voters. But he obviously had no intention of doing that, or felt he couldn't do it because his own Tories were like ungovernable. Absolute mess. Christine Cash, $10. Thank you very much. Happy Independence Day. Yes. We only really get that, though, if we change the electoral system. And there's so many things have to happen. As soon as the election's over, there can't be any resting on laurels. It's got to be straight in on basically the Stop the Tories Vote camp, like the Movement Forward campaign. I actually run that. You know, their priority is going to be, right, it's going to be basically demonstrating that tactical vote helped Labour and then saying to those Labour MPs, you need to now repay them. But it's not just repaying those voters. I can't say it enough. It helps Labour. There's a reason why there's a lot of support for proportional representation in Labour, but not the Conservative Party. There's a reason for that. It's in Labour's interest. This is not... You need the external campaign, putting pressure on it, but this is not all about trying to put pressure onto Labour to do it. It's like just trying to explain to Labour, this is good for Labour. What's that? I'll just say Jenny, £5, thank you. Seeing him dither on about how only he has a plan when he didn't even have the forethought to bring an umbrella out in the pissing rain was beautiful. Yeah, I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, why did no one just set up like a mini awning or something? Absolutely ridiculous. But again, if he'd have called the election for like May, you know, he'd have been fine. That would have been March. He'd have been calling it. The weather was sort of fine in March. And Lars there, 50 Danish kroner, I think. What can we expect from a Labour government in relation to Ukraine, in relation to weapons, money, and possibly UK soldiers on Ukraine soil? So I wouldn't necessarily expect a huge amount of difference. We'll just the main difference will be we'll have a government that's not taking money from the Kremlin. But I think it will be interesting. It will be interesting because we won't really know, because at the moment Labour have not diverged very much from the Conservatives on foreign policy, just because by convention you're not supposed to. It undermines the government's foreign relations efforts if the opposition, particularly as you're coming up to an election, like diverges too much from it. So they generally don't do that. So it's possible that Labour will diverge a bit. We will see. Ultimately, I strongly suspect that what they will want is a NATO response rather than an individual response. They won't have announced anything at the moment. What I do hope is that Macron starts to make a lot more, get a lot more support for the idea of more robust defense of Ukraine, because it's absolutely awful for people in Ukraine when they know that They know that if Ukraine falls, Europe has a massive problem. And they know that Europe has the resources to help them more, not just give them weapons to use themselves. They know that Europe has the capacity to actually go in and help them properly. And it must be absolutely awful for people in Ukraine. Casper, thank you. First European elections, June 6th. Greetings from Holland. That would be yours, would it? And Dr. Mead. Oh, hello. I've lost it. It's all going all over the place. Question $10. Thank you. Question about electoral reform. I know you're a big fan of proportional representation. What do I think about ranked choice voting? Would it be a viable way to make your elections more fair? So you probably sort of need both anyway. When we say PR, we don't mean pure PR, or some people do. You don't necessarily mean pure PR. In most countries, what you generally find is you have a top-up member system. That's more common and would suit us better anyway. So it would be like regional proportional representation that selects so many MPs, and then a transferable vote system to select the constituency MPs. I wouldn't go fully one or the other. A combination of both, but it doesn't matter what I think anyway. A combination of both is the most likely to succeed because it would be the most similar to what people in this country are used to. And I would be all for having a system. You don't want to lose the campaign. You don't want to fail. You don't want the campaign to fail because you're trying to push a system that's too alien to people anyway. Brad, £5, thank you. Sunak's campaign was boosted by a new Tory donor, Paul Novell's, in exchange for getting her off the front pages tomorrow. All right, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Yes. At the same time, though, it means that this inquiry it's going to be a Labour government in charge when this inquiry is coming to its conclusion, isn't it? So if any of these people have had favours done for them by the Conservatives, I mean, if you listen to Keir Starmer in PMQ today, it's not going to be in Labour's interest to carry this on. Labour's made a big thing. Starmer made a big thing about transparency and candour. It's not going to do him any favours at all. I mean, what Labour want to do when they come in, if they get told there's anything else being covered up, they want to throw open the curtains. They basically want to draw a line under everything and say none of this is to do with us, and we're not going to carry on perpetuating it. That is what needs to happen. Isaac, $5, thank you. It says, congrats to getting a real liberal government from USA with love. Well, hopefully, yes. Hopefully. But just a competent one. I mean, that's from the point of view of most voters. They're not looking at this with excitement, thinking, oh, we've finally get a liberal government or, one that's got better ideas about how to run the economy or anything like that. It's just competent. It's going to be a competent government. That's basically that. Oh, Vendetta's got a little question here. Why was Lammy talking to the Tufton Street Heritage Foundation GOP lot? Because they of the potential for Trump to become president. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, and I think there's good reason to suppose it shouldn't. But if it does, they have to be ready. They're not there. They're there basically to try and steer Trump away from some of his madder schemes, is what they're there for. And they have to be. Because the alternative, and I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but the alternative is you just do nothing. Because there are people whispering in Trump's ear, right? And we know who those people are. So why wouldn't we want more sensible people trying to as well? They'll not get very far. I mean, they'll not persuade him to become an angel or anything. But if they can just... The main reason is they want to maintain... They're not trying to turn him into some sort of like decent president or anything. The main thing would be to try and maintain support for Ukraine, or to at least, if it's going to fall away, slow it down. So that's why Labour are talking to the Republicans, why they're talking to Trump, because from their point of view, if they can do nothing else, can they at least stop him instantly pulling all support for Ukraine? Because Europe, and it's ridiculous that Europe has not geared up to replace it. I mean, look how devastating it was when America was holding up that package that included support for Ukraine. It's a madness to me that we rely on America still, but we are reliant upon America. Tim Weaver, £10 thing. Finally, Sunak announces something sensible. He didn't announce it in a sensible way, but he has finally, yes, announced something that people actually want him to do. Wonder if we get a little boost in the polls over next week, because we're talking about the polls maybe narrowing. So now we can test it out. We've got 6 weeks. There's no more speculation. We can analyse the polls over the next 6 weeks and see what's happening. George there, 5. And then at the end of it, see how good the polls were, because there are extra problems this year. George, £5, thank you. Alison McGovern is seriously naive to live in the hope of the Tories seeing anything good that Labour could do. She said this to Andrew Marr 2 days ago. I mean, you know, some of these people, it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens in a few years' time. You know, when things are running better, when people are going, we have got a competent government, when several, and it's not going to be a complete turnaround. We're not going to be living in a new golden age or anything. But when we are living in a situation where things are noticeably better, because some things will be noticeably better, if for no other reason that we have water in our rivers instead of our breakfast. Anthony Gibson there, £2. Finally, a reason for genuine hope. Yes. Yes. Rob there, €20. Thank you. Thanks for the videos, Phil. Been watching for 5 years now. A Dutchman. Thank you very much. I mean, the other... You know, what's the other thing to know? The other thing to note as well, just of interest. Last week, oops, throwing things around. Last week, Rishi Sunak went on television. He went on a program called Loose Women, right? So he went on television and he told them, everyone got excited because he seemed to be suggesting that the election would be autumn. He'd always hinted at it before, but never really suggested. And they were asking about this, saying, hang on a minute, come on, you've got to tell us because people want to book their holidays. And do you know what he said? He said, oh, no, you can absolutely book your holidays. He said, book your holidays. So now the election's going to be in July when some people might have booked their holidays. So he's basically screwed over a load of people. The other mad thing that's going on is there's some Tory rebels reckoning they're writing letters, confidence letters, to try and stop Rishi Sunak calling this election. But it's like, that's just mad because he's already called it. It's done. There's nothing they can do. If a load of Tory MPs hand in confidence letters now, right, then all they can do is they can make their party look proper clowns. It'll just mean there'll be a leadership contest going on at the same time as the election. It'll not stop the election. The amount of... And again, all of these people are from the far right, all whining about it. And as I say, the reason they're whining about it is because just as much as we wanted the public to see the Rwanda plan fall on its arse, so did they. They wanted to see. So now, because what's going to happen now is Rishi Sunak's going to go into the election claiming that his Rwanda plan is there. It's done. All it needs to do is vote Conservative again, and you'll see the boats will stop and it'll be marvellous. With no proof that it won't. And the far right are just as mad about that as the rest of us. But anyway, choosing July when the youngsters are away on holiday. Well, again, I think that's fine. There aren't going to be a disproportionate number of youngsters away on holiday. It's more likely to be elderly people. You know, retired people could be on holiday early July because school holidays haven't started then. So it's not, the price hasn't quite ramped up. So you could actually have some retired people who are on holiday at that time. You know, July is not a good time to have an election, particularly if you're Conservative. Do you know what happened the last time there was a July general election? Someone in the chat will know. When was the last July general election in this country? I'll give it a minute or two. Say families could be on holiday. If families are on holiday of school children, then they're breaking the law because you're not supposed to. Some do. We know some do. But at the end of the day, you know, Alex straight there, 1945, yes, when Labour won a landslide. They did lose. Well, they sort of did and didn't lose 5 years later. They initially didn't lose, and then they did. But yeah, 1945, July. Just after the war, of course, because we had a government of national unity during the war, because obviously you're not going to have a general election whilst you're at war with Europe. So July elections not really been great for the Conservatives. So we're going to get another one. Uni students and college second year students, if they holiday, will holiday late June, July or September. They do at least get the opportunity now to apply for a postal vote, though. So push that idea. If they're going to be on holiday at that time, postal vote. I would argue there's a greater risk of retired people being on holiday, because it's just before it's summer, but it's just before the school holidays, which means when the prices are still a little bit lower. So, you know, retired people, it's a good time to go. It wasn't 1997, no. There has not, it was 1945. We don't, like, in my entire lifetime, I was born in 1976. In my entire life, there has only been one general election that was not held in spring. And that was the last one, 2019 in December. Now we're going to get another one in July. Admittedly, it's only just into summer, but still. Stephen there says it's dead easy to apply for a postal vote, and then everyone could go on holiday when they like. Do it now online. Exactly, yes. It is easy. It means you don't have to worry about voter ID either. Postal, because that's another way to deal with the voter ID problem. Just postal vote. Postal vote. And there we go. Skookum Jack saying that OAP here, my wife and I will be on holiday during the general election. It's not going to stop me voting these clowns out of government. No, exactly. Postal vote is the way to deal with that. Proxy vote as well, but the proxy vote, you have to trust the person, and they need to. You need to trust them on multiple levels. You first of all need to trust that they are actually going to go down and vote, and that they have their voter ID. They don't need yours, but they need theirs, and that they will vote the way you want them to. Postal vote is better. There's only so many people you can trust with a proxy vote. GC there, €5. Filled with postal votes, do they have to be posted by the date or arrive by the date? They have to arrive by the date. So a postal vote has to be with the elections team by 10 p.m. on the day of the election when the polls close. So basically do it nice and early. The only excuse for delaying with a postal vote is if you are in an area where you intend to vote tactically and it's not clear who that tactical vote is, and you might need to wait a bit, but don't leave it too late. Remember, there's going to be a lot of strain on postal services in the last week before the election because of postal voting. Get it in early. And big on £2 there. No complaints, we're not won yet. Stay on target. Yeah. Well, I mean, from the point of view of anyone who's going out knocking on doors, which I will aim to do at some point, but, you know, I am going to be busy, I'm afraid. But from the point of view of people actually on the front line, the door knockers, the candidates, agents, all those people, yes, they cannot be complacent at all. They haven't got any votes yet. Not a single vote has been cast. I can be complacent though. They're going to win. The only way I can't be complacent is I now need to work out the best way of getting messages out for people to make sure they've got the tools to do what they want to do. Not everyone wants to vote tactically, but can we at least make sure that they're registered, that they're going to vote, and that they have voter ID? For those who do want to vote tactically, are they aware of the stopthetories.vote website, which is the best way to help them? Because there are going to be other tactical voting websites, some of which will be well-meaning but may not be as good, some of which will be set up by the Tories, like they did last time, to steer people the wrong way. Jack's £5 saying if you forgot to post it, you can still go down to the polling station with it. Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, if you get to like the day before or something, or you leave it so late that you don't trust it'll arrive on time, you can still go down to the polling office with it. You take it with you. What I will warn, however, I have got anecdotal evidence that sometimes people in the polling stations can be a bit funny about that, but you are entitled to post it. Just argue with them. They have to take it. Martin Napper, £2, thank you. Keep up the good work. I shall attempt to do so. And then we can worry after the election about where we go from here. Because then it shifts to, I shall still be whining about the Tories quite a lot. I think they're still going to provide a lot of entertainment. It's just that it will be, do you know what it feels like? There's plenty of you in the chat, obviously, who are not in the UK. So you're sort of watching this with vague bemusement. But in the UK, it's actually quite scary what's been happening to us in the last few years. It's quite worrying. Whereas once the Tories are safely in opposition, we can see it as you've seen it over the past few years. We can look at it as almost like entertainment. It only becomes scary when they might win an election again. So it'll shift from the Tories, instead of being this like terror, to simply being, to keep pointing out where, stopping people forgetting, I suppose, what they've done, but also making sure Labour do not let the buggers back in again. Because it doesn't matter what Labour do in the next 5, 10, 15 years. It could be marvellous. It could be absolutely amazing. We could be living like the Jetsons in 15 years. All thanks to Labour. Hurrah. If the Tories come back in, it's all gone. Jetpacks and everything. Pulling out to £5 says, when can we expect the publishing of the manifestos? Also, Starmer did a BBC speech where the presenter referred to him as PM. Really? Oh, dear. When can we expect the manifestos? I mean, they've got to get them printed. Labour's is ready to go. Potentially with a slight edit from last week's meeting with the unions. But ultimately, that's ready to go. So it'll just be a case of getting it to the printer. They will want it out as soon as possible. Now it's been called. Potentially next week if they can get it out quickly enough. It depends on the logistics. Like the last time Labour won, they had their manifesto out before the election was called. They didn't wait for the election to be called to publish the bloody manifesto. Obviously, Labour have had to keep tweaking it this time round. But there we go. We now have GB News and Talk TV to crap on Labour every day. For their 3 viewers, I don't think we'll worry about that. More worried. I mean, one thing I will say is it is going to be horrible. The Tory media is going to do what the Tory media do, and but just the nastiness of the campaign. It's going to be targeting people via social media, via all sorts of electronic means, because they've been harvesting people's data for that. They're going to target them directly. It's going to be really unpleasant. Social media is going to be very unpleasant, I feel. It sort of is for some people. I say social media. Twitter, Facebook, places like that are going to be very unpleasant. YouTube has much better systems for keeping things nice. But there we go. Mickey's Mouse just emphasising there, you can hand your postal vote at polling station, but the regs have changed. You need to sign a form now, and there's a limit to how many other people's you can bring with you. Yeah, don't expect to play mailman with it. Do I think PMQs will be worth watching when a Labour government's in charge? Not to begin with at all. I've actually said... so actually, I didn't do a PMQs today anyway, because Starmer chose to ask about the things I was doing in the video anyway. It was intended as a third video. This is the third video now. That's good. So we ended up with 3 videos anyway. But it's... think about what happens what happens in PMQs. The idea is for the opposition party leaders, it's to put the Prime Minister under scrutiny about their policies, about how they're going, about their record. Keir Starmer doesn't have any of these things. What's going to happen at the very first PMQs? Let us say that Rishi Sunak is leader of the opposition, and he hasn't. I think he'll immediately step down, and make Oliver Dowden the lead. But anyway, let us just, whoever it happens to be, if it's a Conservative MP that's leader of the opposition, what's going to happen? They're basically going to stand up and go, no, we did all this good stuff. Don't you wreck it. Don't you go wrecking the Rwanda plan or anything. Keir Starmer's just going to stand up and say, shut up, and sit back down again. He's just going to do that 6 times. Because that's all that can happen. It's pointless. It's going to take months for any... okay, the election's July the 4th. So Parliament goes into reset. There's going to be like 1 or 2 PMQs before Parliament goes into summer recess. And in those 2 p.m. queues, there's nothing to ask. They'll just, in fact, it'll be a rubbish. Whoever's leader of the opposition, it'll be rubbish for them. What are they going to do? They're going to question Keir Starmer on his policies. He's just going to say it's in the manifesto. Didn't you read it? So it's going to be pointless. And then you're going to have, after they come back after summer, that's when the legislation starts. There'll be no legislation really in place. It's going to take the rest of the year for any legislation to work its way through, really. And then how long do you wait before there's any impact of it? It's going to be into next year before you can actually ask a sensible question in PMQs. Other than for clarification, you can ask for clarification of certain policies. You can ask, okay, you seem to say this in your manifesto is a bit vague. Can you please give some details? Yeah, you can do that. But it's going to be rubbish. So I'm not going to do PMQs. Didn't want to do them for quite a while anyway. I just got trapped. I got stuck in a rut on it. Because every time I said, oh, I should stop doing this, people go, no, don't stop doing it. So I will. I'll stop doing it, and then I'll stop doing it on the pretext of there's no point when a government has just taken over. Don't matter which government it is. And after that, obviously, if anything interesting comes up, I'll bring that into a video. But just habitually doing them, what's the point? There's nothing to talk about. Saki Booker say, I just nipped round to Sainsbury's and treated myself to a small libation. Sainsbury's is actually the trickiest supermarket for me to get to where I live. So I haven't been to a Sainsbury's for years. Isn't July 4th an American holiday? Yeah, it's not really what. It's actually quite weird. We're weird in Britain. Some people may have noticed. We quite often celebrate July the 4th ourselves. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It'd be like a neo-Nazi celebrating VE Day, wouldn't it? But we do. But yeah, 5th of July is one we will be celebrating, has just been mentioned there. Absolutely. One Angry Pagan's just saying that Dan missed the announcement. But there we go. Well, it's actually really weird for me as well. I was sort of, do you know what? Because things were calming down a little bit. And I know, someone had said, there were some people going, oh, July the 4th, bit of a buzz around July the 4th. They'd been saying this last week. So, you sort of... But I just thought, oh, it's calming down. We're getting towards summer. It's all winding down a little bit. And, because I play computer games, and I'd finally started playing Baldur's Gate 3. People have been saying to me for a while, oh, you should play it, you'll like it. I thought, I probably will like it, but I need time. And so I finally started playing it today. And then this happens. Pain in the ass. Skookum Jack, £5 again, thank you. It says, keep up the great work, Phil. The next PM will send a gong your way for a second. Just no, they won't. They won't even know who I am. You hide on YouTube, you see. Like, if you have any sort of following on Twitter, everyone knows who you are, because Twitter is where all the politicians and journalists live. Understandable. It's a very good platform for getting out that sort of thing. Quick snippets of news and explainers and stuff like that. Twitter's brilliant, which is why it's a shame that Elon Musk has decided to kill it. But YouTube is purely for ordinary people. Politicians have no idea what they're doing. Like, Keir Starmer has a channel on YouTube. It's rubbish. He hasn't got a clue what... Like, the Labour Party have a YouTube channel. That's rubbish. Keir Starmer has basically launched his own, which I don't know what the purpose of it even is. And that is also appalling. There's like... In fact, I'm going to have a look at it. Right. He's done... okay, the video he's just brought out will probably get a decent number of views because, it's bound to. But he brought out a video yesterday. My first steps to change Britain. 2.7 thousand views. That's appalling. It's rubbish. I could have done a video with him on my channel. He would have got 10 times as much. He'd probably got 30 times as much. But never mind. BG3 is brilliant. Yeah, I'll not find out for a while now, will I? I'll not find out. It's really weird. Hello there, £2. You'll like BG3. Yeah, I'm going to have to wait a while to find out. Actually, I did play a few hours. It seems all right to begin with. I did it on peasant mode. It's fine. But yeah, so I'm now going to have to think. Obviously, actually, interestingly, I was thinking the schedule's basically knackered. But thinking about it, the couple of videos I'd already been working on today, I can probably use. I don't know how interesting it'll be. One of them was about the Lib Dems being a bit more strategic. And the other one, what was the other one I was working on? This is for the weekend, I think. Oh yeah, the top 10 reasons the Tories are knackered. That can still go ahead. So actually, yeah, I don't think I've wasted anything. But it's going to be weird because the videos are now going to have, everything's going to be through the prism of the general election. But at least we know when it is. I can also start to do some videos. I'll have to get my stuff together in the next week or two to try and do some stuff on like records, you know, data. Because we know the easy one is the NHS waiting list, right? Tories, Labour, Tories. So that's easy. But there are other ones as well that'll be worth doing related to the cost of living crisis. Like, are people aware of how much the cost of living has changed? How much average wages? Because they haven't basically changed. The economy hasn't basically grown in this 14 years. You know, there's a lot of things there. Different between Sunak and Starmer's speeches were night and day. I haven't seen the Starmer one yet. Both supposedly planned by experts. One in the pouring rain with music blaring, the other a professional job. Oh, they recorded it in advance, did it? Or was it just inside? Angry Pagan, £5, thank you, says, this is good. Now sit back and watch the Tories fall over themselves, bickering about whether or not they did things right. Love Steve Bray's trolling. Oh, it was absolutely amazing. Sunak, I thought he was going to lose it at one point because it was really loud. And admittedly, we're listening to Steve Bray's Things Can Only Get Better through the PA system, like the microphones that are recording it. So we don't know how loud it was for Rishi Sunak himself, but I've heard Steve Bray go, it's quite loud. So I think he would have been really struggling. I think he was struggling. It was so funny. It was absolutely hilarious. The only problem with it, and obviously Steve Bray would not have known what Sunak was planning to say. The irony was that the song stopped when Rishi Sunak started banging on about Labour. It would have ironically been funnier if it had happened then, but obviously you can't see the future. Where am I? I need someone to keep an eye on super chats. Lots to be missed today. Have they? Sorry, hang on. Let me try and find them then. This is the first. I've only done this because I'll just go through a few here. There was. I thought it was too soon for me to guarantee that members would be on for the chat, and then there'd be no chat. Hayley, £5, thank you. Tory campaign serious or trans people and culture wars? So, if you believe some of the journalists, what the Tories want to talk about is the economy. It's not a good place for them. So I think culture wars. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the leadership... Tory MPs are now going to be... It's going to be like trying to herd cats. Normally what happens, like what Labour's campaign... I'll tell you what Labour's campaign will be like. The strategists will give the lines to all the candidates. This is what you need to push. This is the line to take. This is the line to take. This is the line to take. And it will all be carefully coordinated. Today, we're going to be talking about this. And then that's what you do. The Tories are going to be all over the place. In fact, I remember I wince when I think back to 2019. There was, for example, you know, the day when Jeremy Corbyn announced the broadband policy. Okay. What he was supposed to be talking about was healthcare that day. They'd planned to do healthcare. They told everyone healthcare. Even members of the shadow cabinet. They were all going out to talk about the NHS. Then suddenly Jeremy Corbyn changed it and went, no, we're talking about broadband. What broadband? I've got this new policy. What? Have you? It was totally chaotic. That's what the Tory one's going to be like. That's what it's going to be like. You know, and even if the leadership follows a line, the rest of the Tory MPs won't, because they're all now panicking. They all realise that their seats are in jeopardy. They all realise that it's up to them now. Even Grant Shapps has been recommending to Tory candidates that they just do their own thing. So they are not going to be coordinated. The national policy, like the campaign, the central campaign, that's probably just going to be the social media and media stuff. Tory candidates are just going to be basically left on their own, I think. Jay Will there, €10 from Czech Republic. Thank you. It says, let's hope after the election the Labour move forward, helping the general population. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for running this channel. Not a problem. I shall attempt to keep doing so. But, you know, let's go through the last couple. We've got a few minutes anyway. Progressive Path, £5, thank you. How significant were today's inflation figures the decision? Clutching at straws, surely. Yeah, absolutely. The inflation figures weren't as good as expected. They were worse than expected. They were trying to put lipstick on a pig today by going on about, oh, the inflation, we've got the inflation down. It's like, no, the target's 2%. They thought it was. They thought they'd got it down to target 2%. Still 2.3%. Not that I would care about 0.3% here or there. That's not really the point. But the point is that if you look at what's happened between, like, why didn't they call the election on May the 2nd? Why didn't they do that? They would still have had Andy Street as Mayor of the West Midlands. They'd have had more councillors than they now do. That would have meant more activists organising things. They've now going to struggle. Oh, little practical thing here. Please advise stopthetories.vote to make their web interface much easier to use. People need to find out who to vote for to beat the Tory really easily. Shouldn't have to sign up, etc. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to sign up. Go to the website. It's literally stopthetories.vote. In fact, I'm just going to quickly now show you how easy it is. You do not have to sign up if you do not want to sign up. Where the hell is all this? Something's wrong here. No. What? I don't know why that's there. Is it that? It's that. Right. Last thing. Let me just open up the website. And then stick it behind me. Right, stick it behind me. All you have to do is put in your postcode, if that's all you want. Hang on, I'm going to look up a postcode. That's not. I'm just going to hide that. In fact, no, I'll. Let's have a look. Random postcode. That's all I need. B11A. Oops, hang on. Sorry, I've disappeared it again. So I've just put a random Birmingham postcode in. Sorry if this is your address. I'm not. And you then go to your postcode here. So let's say it's this one. It looks like I've picked something here. Hang on. This is the join up one. Oh, hang on. I think I know what the problem is. I'm just going to click. This is the right. It's just okay. So when you go to the thing, it's because they're not there yet. That's why. I'll check when it comes to the election itself. When it comes time to cast your vote, it won't look like this. It will just require the postcode. I see what the problem is. Sorry, it won't be like that come the election. That is just because the election's only just been called now. It will get changed. I will pass the message on, though, that it will need changing sooner rather than later. All you will need to do is put your postcode in. Right, last few, because we need to call it time, because in half an hour I'm doing a stream for members as well anyway. Have your thumbnail experiments worked well like the current one? They have, actually, yes. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but they have worked well. Progressive Path 5. How significant... Oh, sorry, I've done that one. Sorry if I've missed any out. We won't be doing this again for a while, if ever. How much of a credible threat does Count Binface represent to the Tories now? Unfortunately, because Count Binface will stand against Rishi Sunak, if anything, he makes it easy for Sunak to win. But I think, in reality, if people smell that Sunak could be taken down, then I don't think Count Binface will get many votes. I don't think he will anyway, if we're honest. Phil there saying, £5, thank you. I'm refusing to be too complacent. This will be the first general election with ubiquitous access to AI in all its forms. Yeah, I mean, it is quite worrying. Fake news, fake videos, fake websites. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. One angry peg in there, £5. Starmer's post of shadow minister for badgering Tory leaders is almost over. Hope the debates will be as good as we think too. Sunak is screwed. Sunak, well, he's not though, is he? He's rich. He's made himself much richer, and he's going to go off to a life of luxury. He will be mildly annoyed that he goes down in history as maybe having the biggest. He may preside over the biggest defeat in British history. That is, you know, but he's not screwed. This is what gets me, I'm afraid, as well. Like, an ordinary person, if an ordinary person is screwed, like if they lose their job, suddenly that's a problem because they've got bills to pay. They don't really have savings. They might not have any savings. They're in real trouble. Rishi Sunak loses the election. He's still basically a billionaire. He's a billionaire who will be annoyed. That's it. I'm afraid, just to leave you on a downer. But I am going to have to leave you, I'm afraid. Thanks very much for coming on, everyone. A really good stream, if very sudden. Hopefully there won't be any more sudden. I've got a crap load of emails to go through as well. But thanks for coming on. Have a very good evening and a very good next 44 days. Because in 44 days we'll have a different government. And we'll have another stream. And we'll probably have a stream in 43 days after, because I did say I would do a stream when the polling closes and we might get exit poll. Well, we will get exit polls. So we'll leave it till then as well. Other than that, the normal stream will be on this Saturday. I guess we're going to talk about something similar as well, aren't we? But thanks very much. Until next time, I'll see you later.